What's up, guys? Welcome to the party. This is Ben, and this is the first episode of Shut the Punk Up. And today I have my good friend, uh, Kyle, who is in the band A Common Crown, and he is on the In Liberty and Health podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about his band and maybe dive into some of the culture and politics stuff towards the end. But without further ado, let me bring his ass up here. What up, Kyle?
What's up, man?
Not much, dude. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. We played a show last night to a packed house in a bar I used to go drinking at every single Sunday, and yeah, it was a good time. It was nice to touch grass, as they say, but it's always cool to get out there and be amongst the other people and have some drinks and just party. So it was a really good time, really good weekend.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And you're based in Pennsylvania, correct? What part of PA?
Correct. Southwestern Pennsylvania. So, we're from about an hour-ish north of Pittsburgh in a small town called Ford City, where my bass player and my singer live is where we kind of practice, and then we mostly play shows all over this part of the state. But I mean, we're not afraid to go venturing out. I mean, we've played out in Ohio a little bit. I feel like there's some other places that just slipped my mind more towards the center of the state as well. But we're definitely looking, hopefully next year, to kind of get out and about a little bit more as well.
Do you guys like have plans to do like any touring in the future? Is that kind of what you're getting at, or like are you mostly focusing on recording and producing your music and stuff like that right now?
I'll probably just record more music for right now. We all kind of work full-time gigs as much as we would
Right.
all like to do that. If I would have got that teaching instructor gig, which unfortunately I didn't get, then touring would have been more on the docket. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that just doesn't seem to be in our future right now. Um, we had things pretty well set up there in early 2020 when we released our CD, The Reckoning. Released it in February 2020 to I'm pretty sure it was a sold out show for our CD release show, absolutely packed wall to wall at the Mr. Small's Funhouse, which isn't like enormous, but it was definitely packed that night. So we had a whole bunch of festival shows coming up all over this side of the country, and then you know how the rest of 2020 went. But unfortunately, we've been a little bit slow on the punch recently. But we're going to be releasing another song maybe in about like another month or two, I want to say.
Nice. You guys have been recording?
Not recently. We just have some stuff that's kind of held over from when we kind of hit the studio in 2020 and 2021, and we still have a couple more songs that we just need to like get out there. And I think one we're probably gonna re-record and then release here soon. And then I want to put out an EP. We're still kind of up in the air with like some of the singles that we have. We wanted to release kind of like one dedicated EP for all the singles that we put out, or if we're just gonna
Nice.
release another single, but I think we're probably gonna release a single, and then we're gonna start writing a little bit more here probably in the winter time, and then hopefully next year we'll have some new music and start kind of rolling again.
Nice. Yeah, like let's talk release strategy here in a second, but I totally forgot to play my intro that I put together. So I'm gonna
You're
just put
good,
that
man.
on real quick.
Let's
Sorry.
go.
Now that's out of the way. But yeah, so like you're talking about putting out an EP, basically like are you saying singles that you've already put out and then basically take all of those and put them into one thing and put them out, or just stuff you've already got recorded that hasn't been put out yet and you just get it out?
It would be kind of both. So we have one song that we play out quite a bit now called Gemini, and it's fantastic. I really like that song, and we've had it done for quite a while. And it actually has a tempo change towards the about I want to say like 60% through the song. It goes from I forget what the exact tempos were, but it was a pretty drastic change. But the song really melds together pretty well, and it has like a clean outro. We've been playing it out for years, so it's all done and recorded. But we just have to like add. Well, I shouldn't say all done, but like just add a couple more parts, and then we'll kind of get that one out there. So we'll probably put that on there, and then the couple other singles that we have. One that's we're going to be releasing is called "Cry," which is a little bit of a heavier song. We released "Heartless" back in July, so we probably have that on there as well, and maybe "Broken Glass" and our cover of "Message in a Bottle." So we would put that out as like a 5 song thing, and
Nice.
then probably move on.
Nice. And so I've noticed, and this has just kind of changed over time, but obviously for bands that are kind of more on the mid-range level, that are, still growing and still playing, local shows, not doing a ton of touring.
Mm.
It doesn't really make sense to put out full albums anymore.
Right.
So obviously EPs are way more economically efficient, but also like releasing singles. I've noticed a lot of bands will just put out like a single every 2 or 3 months with a music video or something like that, grow the hype on those, and then they'll put out like a 5 or 6 song EP, once they have 2 or 3 of the songs that are on the EP out. And I mean, I've noticed this a lot with um I've noticed this a lot with like mid-level bands, but when it comes to like, I don't know, like Beartooth just put out a new album, which I don't know
Mm.
if you're a fan of Beartooth, but
Yeah, I
they
like them.
probably put out like 4 or 5 of the songs on their album as singles with music
Ah,
videos.
I know exactly what
And
you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and now they've got like, like it's a 10 or 12 song album, and everything I've heard so far is a banger. But I'm definitely gonna try to do like an album review or something of that. But like they've completely changed as a band over time. Like they used to just like drop albums.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe it's just like a difference in marketing strategy, like that has changed because there's not as much money to be made in music.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of thinking it could be just that people have such short attention spans that you have to keep them entertained, and you can't go 6 months without releasing music anymore, really. Like you have to keep some continual content being released. Do you guys have any kind of like plans like that? Or like, I know you were saying, EP and maybe some singles. Do you have like music video plans or anything?
We've kind of kicked the idea around. I would really like to do one because I think not that people necessarily sit down and watch music videos as much anymore, but I think people really like the hype for something. And
Mhm.
kind of to your point, I think like the slow drip is a little bit more what people do now. Like Seven Dust had just released a CD, I want to say a couple of months ago, and same deal. They released like a couple of the singles, and then they released an EP, and then they released like the whole album, which had all those songs that were singles and all the songs that were EPs. So a lot of bands are putting out anywhere from like 5 to 6 singles between album releases now at this point.
Yeah.
And like I'm all for it because I love hearing the new music, and it's kind of cool because it's like, hey, we hype up this single and then you get it, and then it's like you feel a little bit more into the band's narrative. But at the same
Right.
time, it's also like I also enjoy listening out to albums front to back and kind of hearing like if it's almost like a story, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a theme from the start to the end. So I don't know. I'm a little bit different though in that regards, but I get why they do it. And I think it's because if you release like the singles, then okay, well, you get a little bit of revenue for this specific stream
Mm.
version of this song, and you release an EP, and now you get, potentially more revenue from those releases. And then if you release all those songs, together in an album, now you have that song on 3 different like CDs or 3 different releases that you can all potentially gain revenue from. I think that's probably the mindset behind it, but I can't say for sure. But that to me makes the most sense, and I think that's probably what's going on.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like, how would you like, so I guess like, let's listen to Awake. You sent me one of your songs the other day, and like, let's just like, I guess sit through the music video real quick and let
Yeah.
the people hear it.
Mhm.
Looking
Fair use, fair use.
fair use. Yes. All right. Dope. Woo. I like that.
Yeah.
Day one we go for a ride. I feel so sad inside. Cigarette burns on the floor, but I came back for more.
This is typically our opener.
She kind of reminds me of Taylor Momsen.
You can see why.
I'm beautifully like a shame. Picked up off of the floor, and then you pray for her. No end and no beginning.
This was mostly written before I was really in the band, but I added some parts to it. and I thought we made it come together pretty good, especially in the recording.
This is great. Yeah.
Thank you.
One lie, two lies, three lies is never ending. One lie, two lies, three lies away. Day three is still burning bright, burning frozen into the night. Can't get out of my head. The whole world's gone for dead. No end and no beginning. So little life for living. One lie, two lies, three lies is never ending. One lie, two lies, three lies away.
3 lines of coke and you're awake.
That's what Jen said it was about. It's about
No end and no beginning. So little life for living.
I like that.
so that harmony is what I put in there because I remember when we were playing it. I'm like, there's a little harmony in there. I think it really
I
extends.
love that harmony. Yeah.
One lie, two lies, three lies
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, so
Nice.
you could actually hear we kind of did the whole group thing where everybody went in and shouted awake for that, and you could hear a little bit of my screaming vocals in that, and then in
Nice.
I think it's I want to say it's the last song on our EP, Ever After. I did a lot of the backup vocals in that song as well. And that
Nice.
one we played it once without Jen, who's our singer. And I remember my bass player when we were all done, he's like, "Man, this is like a fucking Dream Theater song because there's so many like different melodies and harmonies and stuff like that." And yeah, I was REP was the first ever like full musical release that we ever did. So we recorded a song called If You Want, which is a little bit more punk, and it was written by Jen's one friend Nathan. And
Hmm.
obviously we kind of like brought it to life and everything, but that was like the first song I ever recorded. And it was one of those magical moments. I was laying out my guitar solo for it, and I remember everybody in the room turned and looked at me and started smiling. Like
Nice.
I could still feel like the warmth
Yeah.
of that moment, like I just lived it.
So what's your like songwriting process like? Like does she just write lyrics and then you guys kind of work around it, or like do you kind of take the lead, write some guitar riffs, and you guys just build from there?
Yeah, I was explaining this when I was on a Hawk It with Amit, and the way that I kind of look at this is that like we almost like cook a meal together. So like I may bring like it may seem like an appetizer or something like that at first. So like I bring a riff and then
Mm.
we'll all kind of like work around it. So like one song that comes to mind is the one I was talking about earlier, Gemini, where I had like this kind of the chugging in it. It's like it has like some really weird bends, but then like when I gave it to Jen and had like some ideas of where to go with it, she was like, "Oh, I'm hearing this," and then she like sang a melody, and then eventually I wrote something to that, and then we just kind of kept building stuff on top of it. And there was a part in the beginning of the song that we didn't think would fit, so we took that out, and then just kind of kept building on top of that. But that's typically kind of what we do is that like one of us will introduce a guitar riff, so either like me or Jay, and then we'll kind of bring it to the band, and then we'll kind of riff on it a little bit. Me, Steve, who's the bass player, Matt, who's the drummer, and we'll kind of eventually work something together. And then Jen, she has like this magic ability to sing over anything and sound amazing. Thank you, Alice. Yeah, I'm glad she's stopping by. But yeah, I enjoyed that show a lot. But like, basically, we'll just kind of build on top of the guitar riffs, and then once we got something coherent, then we'll say, okay, well, we'll take this one to the studio, or hey, well, maybe we'll play it out a little bit and just see kind of how it feels. And that's generally how we get to a full song together. Um, Jen is really good, and so is Matt at like writing a song. So like
Mm.
Jen will, like I said, she'll hear melodies and stuff in her head, and then Matt, being the drummer, is really good at just, kind of figuring out, okay, well, maybe we'll do like a shorter verse here. Maybe we'll put a little fill here. I always compare him to Lars Ulrich, and I know that might drive him nuts or might drive some people nuts, but like, I think Lars is an absolutely phenomenal songwriter. He's not the greatest drummer in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but like, I think it's pretty hard to argue that Metallica writes absolutely fantastic songs.
Right. Yeah, Lars is like definitely like a mediocre mid drummer at
Right.
best.
Uh-huh.
But when it comes to their product, he
Mhm.
definitely contributes in a way that like keeps them Metallica over decades, right? Like he's consistent and yeah, like the songwriting is just there. And I get what you're saying because like um when it comes to putting together a song, like the best songs come out of like basically a byproduct of everybody working together.
Yes.
Usually when just one person's doing everything, most of the songs will end up sounding exactly the same
Mhm.
all the time. Like, especially this happens a lot in like pop punk, and I've been in that scene. I've been that guy that wrote every song and did everything
Mhm.
before, and it was not a good time. And then as it developed along, in touring and in music, I found some guys around me that were very talented musicians. And, we'd have this guy come in, like bring a sick riff. And,
Yeah.
we had a drummer that's just like could piece it together. He also could play guitar and stuff as well. And he wrote lyrics for another band as well. And like, your bass player who can play keys and all this other stuff too. Like the just
Yeah.
like when you have that kind of depth to your band where everybody can equally contribute, it just makes the end product so much better. Like it doesn't even
Yeah.
need as much production. Like obviously a producer always helps, but
Mhm.
when it comes to like at this stage, nobody can afford to spend $1,000 a song or more on a producer. That's asinine and crazy. Um, but yeah, no, that's great. So let's see. I was that's funny.
Metallica don't even need to go through metal detectors at the That's pretty good.
It's true.
It
Yeah.
kinda what you said there
They
kinda
save the
make
metal detectors for rappers only, I think, at this point. So,
what you were saying there kinda reminds me of Pantera and why they're my favorite band on the face of the planet.
nice.
It like, that band Pantera wouldn't be Pantera without Phil, Rex, Dime, and Vinny, right? Like, all
Right.
the albums they put out, if you would have replaced any one of those members, it wouldn't have sounded the same at all. But I think like very few situations are there where like you have a band that like none of the members change, but like you can almost tell which member wrote which song and it's unique in that
Mhm.
way and they all get along really well. So like in my band specifically, like Steve and Matt, the bassist and drummer, they're both very, very like no ego at all, very easy to play with. And I play very, very well with Matt.
Yeah.
And there are like very few drummers that I've played with where I felt like, oh, this guy gets it. Like we just nail it. And ever since I started playing with him, it was like that connection. It's always been that way. And it's kind of funny. Like when I first met him before we were playing a band together, I'm like, oh, he probably thinks I'm like an asshole or something like that. I always thought he didn't like me at all. And then now, fast forward all these years later, me and him are really, really tight. And then, we might play like in a different project together sometime soon. But yeah, like he's very easy to play with. And then he said, oh yeah, you play with a drummer really well. So him and I just speak that same language. And then Steve, same deal, where he's a very, very tight rhythm player. And Jay is a little bit different in terms of a guitar because he's a little bit more loose. He's more, I don't want to say like a single band or a single guitar player band
Mhm.
kind of guy, but his bigger influence is like Van Halen, whereas mine's a little bit more like current metal. So we have a little bit different styles, but I think where he makes up is maybe in songwriting ability, where I might be a little bit more of the icing on the cake. So I like Jay a lot, but his style is definitely different than mine. It took a little bit of a learning curve when he joined the band about 3 years ago for us to kind of get all that situated, but I think we did get it figured out.
That's funny. Yeah, like I would say like there's probably very few bands that can even pull it off with just having one guy write everything.
Right.
I'm coming obviously more from the punk and emo side of things, and I'm just thinking about like someone like Panic at the Disco, where like they even Brendan Urie wasn't an original member of Panic at the Disco,
Mhm.
but over time he ended up being the only one that stayed, and they kept the name, and he basically makes consistent music, or at least he did. I think they retired a while ago, and maybe they didn't. They just played another show. I don't know. Bands
Mhm.
be doing this all the time where they're like, "Oh,
Oh,
we're
hiatus.
retired. I need a break or something," and then they come back like 4 or 5 years later because they miss it or because they can't pay their bills with inflation. Thanks, Bin
Yeah.
Laden. But yeah, it's just it's kind of funny. Like, what do you think? I mean, about some of these bands coming out and doing reunions? Like, there's a couple that have just been really bad.
Well, to bring it back to Pantera, now that they're doing a reunion now, I understand why people would be poo-pooing it, but I think it's really cool to see a band like Pantera, who had such a big legacy on heavy metal, to kind of
Mm,
come back out and give people like me who never got the experience of seeing like the OG Pantera, playing out and about again, so we get to enjoy these songs live. It's funny, Alice said, yeah, or they can't pay their bills.
right.
I think there's probably some of that, but in my mind, like if we're talking about Pantera, I mean, we're talking about one of the biggest metal bands in history. I
Mhm.
think they're probably okay. I could be wrong, and especially because Phil and Rex both had so many other projects that were successful. Um, I know Bleeding Through called it quits back in 2013, I want to say, after they released I can't remember what the hell that album was called. And then they came back. I want to say their album came out in 2018. I know Atreyu did something similar where they
Mm,
called it quits and then came back like 3 or 4 years later. I think it's probably like once you're into that lifestyle, go back to maybe like a regular 9 to 5 or something like that. Like it's just you don't think that's your deal anymore. Like you don't want to do that. So, if all you know is playing music, then you're gonna continue to play music.
yeah. Right, so, you're not an original member of A Common Crown, are you? Or are you?
No, no, no. They only had one song before I joined the band, but
Okay. So you're
that
kind
was
of original. You've been around for a while with them,
I,
right?
I would say how do I put this without sounding like a prick? There's no real good way to put it without sounding like a prick, but like the most notable things that we did as a band was since I've been a part of the band. So like, the
Mm,
Reckoning EP, the 4-song EP that we put out, that was I wrote I didn't write and record most of that, but I recorded most of it and I wrote m- pretty much the entirety of like the Reckoning song itself, but like the other 3 songs I added stuff to them. Um and then all the singles that we put out ever since then, I, helped write or did write and recorded them as well. And then, like I said, 17 Lives is the only song. We still play it out live every here and there, but that's the only song that was put out before I was a member of the band. So I joined after they had been a band for, I want to say maybe 3 years. But the old guitar player Lupo, who's actually a dear friend of mine, he's a really, really good dude. He just decided, hey, I don't want to play guitar anymore, and I just want to go paint. And he's absolutely fantastic at that.
mm, nice. So, like and then, like, you've said you've done a little bit of shows out of state. I think you had mentioned to me personally before that you've played, like, some big festivals, like, what was that like? Like, what festivals have you played?
Well, they were just mostly like festivals around here. So like the Rock for Life festivals we played a
Mm,
bigger show in Ohio at the King of Clubs that was sold out, and that was in 2020. But it was pretty cool because that's like a notable venue. I mean, like Lita Ford, Black Dahlia Murder, and some bigger bands have played through there.
yeah.
We played Pappy Z's Farm Fest over in Ohio, and we had I want to say it was Carolina Rebellion or something like that. It wasn't like the big North Carolina festival that goes on down there. It was a smaller one, but we were supposed to play that in 2021, and they ended up canceling that festival. But playing shows like that's always a whole ton of fun.
Mm.
And we also did that one show with where we opened for Steel Panther. But it's a pretty
Yeah.
exhilarating feeling to walk out on stage and feel your guitar shaking in your chest, or see the hundreds, thousands of people in front of you,
Yeah.
and seeing people go nuts for your music. It's been exhilarating since the first time I ever played a show in a little rinky dink hole in the bar back in 2000, what would have been in 2017, I want to say. But I mean, ever since then, I've just absolutely love it. I wish I could do it full time, but unfortunately, music doesn't pay the bills.
Right. No, that is the problem. At that level, like people have to work full-time jobs and do this as a hobby until it just clicks. Like even getting signed to a major label. I've got some guests coming on later this month
Nice.
that are signed to really big labels, but they didn't make anything for money. Like they were
Yeah.
basically eating ramen on tours and they didn't take home anything. They're basically like on the road for free is basically what it came down to, because they have obligations to their label to pay things back for merch and whatever they're paying for in terms of like the touring itself.
Yeah.
And obviously like not being able to sell music anymore as like an album or a CD, a physical CD or a record, like that's changed it dramatically. Like streams, you're getting like a hundredth of a penny per stream or something like
Right.
that. Not even a hundredth of a penny per stream. So if you're making money streaming and on Spotify, then you have to be getting hundreds of thousands of listens per month,
Exactly.
which people don't really understand. Or for musicians, most of the time the way we're making money, right, is by going out and playing shows and selling merchandise like t-shirts and stuff. But there is like, really when it comes down to it, like we don't take home a lot of any of this money. Like my band never took home any money. None of us personally pocketed a dime. It all went right back into the band, just to try to help us grow. Cause like, it's just so expensive in the industry. And, when you're playing out of state or touring or playing big festivals like this, it's so difficult to even just get to the next town sometimes off of the bar money you got the night before, So, like I don't know, the game's changed for sure.
Yeah, so like one thing that I've noticed a lot of artists are talking about now is like all the venues taking merch cuts, which by the looks of it now, most of these bands normally make a lot of their money from merch cuts.
Yeah.
And some of those venues were taking, I think it was up to like almost 30 or 40% for merch. It's like, this is how people are now making their money. Like they don't make that much money off ticket sales because there's all these ticket fees and the venues want to pocket that much money. And now just to set up like a table there to sell
Mm.
merch, now they're going to take it in, cut of that. Like, how are you supposed to survive? It
What
really didn't like hit me that bands were struggling until I saw like Howard Jones from Light the Torch saying like, "Hey, we can't afford to tour."
When I've heard like Live Nation venues, there was enough uproar against the merch cuts that they were taking that they're scaling that back. And I don't know if they've actually done it or if there's truth to it yet, but I heard that that's what they were going to be doing. But obviously, like when it comes to, I remember when I could go to a show and I could buy a t-shirt for like $15 from one of my favorite bands. I remember that.
Yeah.
And now
Good
you go
luck
to a
doing that
show, you're
now.
not paying anything less than 45 or $50 for a t-shirt.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And with that, it's one of those things like there's very likely a correlation between the merch cuts that the venues are taking and how much you're having to spend on a t-shirt, right? Like it's just
Exactly.
in the same way as like the taxes or tariffs, I should say,
Yeah.
like how our government would put a tariff on a company and obviously the consumer is the one that ends up paying that. It's not the company. The company just charges more because there's a demand for what they're selling. That's how it works.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous that people think that it would work any other way. Like people are not stupid. They're gonna find a way to make money no matter what. Never been to a concert where merch was less than $30 a shirt.
Yeah.
It's funny. My
Crazy.
first concert I ever went to was, oh God, probably 2000. 2009 to see Job for a Cowboy, Guar, and Lamb of God. And I want to say I got a shirt from there for 20 or $25. And that might even
Mm,
be up a little bit, but like I remember paying that. And then, the tickets were 30 or $40 maybe at most. They might even been like 25. And then nowadays, you can't even go to a concert. Like one of the bigger venues here you might see like Metallica, or not Metallica, but like Megadeth or Anthrax at the venue. It's called Stage AE, and
mm,
that's down in Pittsburgh. Now you can't get in there for under $60. Like
right.
Gojira and Mastodon came through, and yeah, their tickets were $60. So like
Yeah.
back when that place first opened in probably 2000, let's say 2011, 2012, yeah, tickets were probably like 30, $40. But yeah, now 60 easy.
Well, and I mean, for myself personally, like I remember we played some, big festivals with like Corn and Stone Sour and Data Remember, Falling in Reverse, all these guys.
Yeah.
And we would they would require us basically to sell our shirts for at least like $50 each. And I'm like, yo, last night or a couple weeks ago, we played at a venue down the road for like 100 people. And
You're
we were
selling, yeah, tickets were $10 and then
tickets
shirts
were
were
$10 and
15.
our shirts were 20, right?
Yeah.
Like who the hell is gonna buy a $50 t-shirt from a local band?
Mm,
Um, and it turns out, we actually made a shit ton of money on t-shirts. It's new people, new faces we haven't played for before. But
yeah.
they definitely took a significant portion of that because they facilitated that. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like they put together the show and all this stuff. So like on one hand, I'm like, okay, like I get it, but like if you're already at the level of like your shirts basically sell themselves,
Right.
why are these bands like having to give money back to the venue, right? Because like they're the ones that are facilitating the venue's success. They're the ones that are bringing in the people and the faces and
Right.
filling the bar up and all this stuff. It just makes absolutely no sense for big national touring acts to have to basically just pay back the venue. It's insane.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that you say that because, like, people who want a Stone Sour shirt, who are diehard Stone Sour fans, they're not looking at, the local opener and saying, like, oh my God, I can't wait to buy their shirts. Like, even if your shirts were
Right.
half price, people aren't going to go, like, oh, I'm just going to get their shirt because it's cheaper. Like, no, people do want a specific kind of product. If
Right.
people want I've seen people buy like the $100 Metallica hoodies when my wife and I went and saw Metallica and Pantera down in New Jersey. Like people don't care if they want it, they're gonna get it. My tattoo artist, funny enough, was telling me down there, the band has 5 songs, 3 of them are covers. They're playing for exposure, losing money on the merch giveaway. Yeah, essentially.
It's pretty much how it is,
But
especially in the pop punk world.
um my tattoo artist was telling me they only made like 500 Metallica posters for the Metallica show, and people would buy them, and then they would turn around and sell them for like thousands of dollars on the internet. Like, why would you only make that many when you have like 80,000 people come to a venue? Like, that is
That's crazy.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I did see, I opened up the show with the "What the fuck is up, Denny's?" I love that clip so
Oh,
much.
yeah, it's
But
so
Blink
great.
182 just like did the same thing because it was like the 10-year anniversary of that video. And I
Oh,
did think that was pretty good. Like I was like, okay, uh, you know, I wonder if like they gave a cut to the band that did that because I feel like, I'm not like an IP guy or anything like that, but like, they kind of like made that. So hopefully they
yeah.
got some props out of it. I mean, everyone knows who they were anyways, um, but yeah, so I don't know, like, let's see here. I was going to kind of start seeing if you wanted to talk about maybe your podcast a little bit, but before I do that, let me bring up one of our sponsors real quick so I
Yeah.
can give them a shout out. So we are talking about the Blood of Tyrants wine. Are you looking for a nice night in while sipping on the blood of your enemies and supporting the destruction of the tyrannical state? Look no further than Blood of Tyrants wine. A nice Merlot distributed by activists you know and love. Blood of Tyrants wine is the place to go. Use promo code FSM and you'll get 10% off your first order. The Blood of Tyrants wine, or the link will be in this description below. And also just remember to use promo code FSM. So yeah, there you go. Good people. Dan's a good guy. They actually just started making energy drinks, and I've been drinking
Oh,
those
yeah.
for the last couple of weeks. It's like a raspberry green tea.
Uh-huh.
definitely gets my day off on the right foot. And I love drinking the blood of tyrants for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I'm not a big wine drinker, but I would always like to try some new shit. So
Yeah, I'm not a wine guy, but I'll for sure drink. I will for sure drink them energy drinks. I need all
yeah.
of the energy drinks. Um, I don't know. Would you let's talk about the podcast a little bit. So like, what do you do within Liberty and Health? Like, how did you get started doing your own show? Like, what made you want to start doing that?
So I was always kind of outspoken about political stuff, like in my personal life. And I would like to believe I'm not a very dogmatic person. Like I think most people who know me personally, if we talk politics or anything like that, even if we vehemently disagree, I'm never like rude or disrespectful to people. But I always had lots of thoughts and opinions. And so I had all this stuff right now, the computer, the microphone, and everything set up in my room for forever and a half. I want to say for almost like a year
Mm,
before I really started doing the podcast. So I remember in about September of 2021, I was like, all right, I'm going to schedule somebody and then just from there kind of hit the ground running. And I knew I kind of wanted to bring a little bit more of the health and wellness kind of like ideas in the liberty sphere because I think that these two ideas of like libertarianism and health and wellness, they're very, very they belong together for
mm,
lack of a better phrase, I guess. So I really wanted to kind of bring that message to the liberty sphere and also bring a little bit more of the fitness people into the liberty sphere. So I feel like I've done a good job of that. And I feel like I've had a lot of interesting guests and interesting conversations with those kind of people. And I always found that like the health people always had interesting things to say about politics. And I find that most of them do typically lean libertarian
yeah.
because they're very, very responsible people, right? They're responsible for their own lives and for their own health. Because at one point, maybe they weren't healthy or maybe they had health issues that led them down the course of on it that are like, hey, the government misinformation screwed me, or I had to take a lot of responsibility to improve my own condition and my own health. So yeah, in October of 2021 I decided to just start pop up a camera and a microphone and just start talking to people, and I haven't stopped since, and I absolutely love it. And it's a lot of fun, and I found that I've reached a lot of people, and I've had a lot of interesting conversations, and seemingly have helped a lot of people because the messages I get from people saying, hey, like I used to be scared to eat this, but now I eat this now and my life's a lot better, or
Yeah.
hey, I lost this much weight, or I never thought about foreign policy this way, or I didn't know this about this specific issue. The amount of those kind of messages I've got is absolutely incredible. So um it's
That's
frustrating
great.
as it can be to not see like your shit blow up. To have those kind of messages come into my inbox is still really, really cool.
I mean, I will say, like, I've lost like 50 pounds this year. And it's like not just physically beneficial, but it like mentally just clears your head. And
Absolutely.
you don't feel as groggy. And um, even as an emo, like I'm obviously emo as fuck sometimes, but at the same time, like just I feel better. I feel like happier just generally just going about my day-to-day routine. And kind of like what you're doing with this and with fitness is kind of like what obviously my goal is with this and the music scene is to kind of like intertwine these ideas, because in the music scene it's everyone has a political opinion. Like
Yeah.
nobody sits out on that. So whether they reflect that in their music, it doesn't always come across in their music. But if you go to a music show, like, or any kind of concert at all, um you're going to have people that are very outspoken about
Yeah.
what they believe. And they usually, like, at least for me personally, like I formed a lot of my political opinions because of the music I grew up listening to, the punk rock. That's what it basically turned me into an anarchist when I was a teenager. So, um, you know, like I was just at an emo night last night and talking to an anarcho-communist, and that was a very interesting conversation. The second time I've talked to this person, they recognized me from the previous show, but I'm like, we can talk about the economic. Like they were like, we can talk about anarchy, but let's not talk about economics. And I'm like, well, that's what communism is. It's
Right.
economics. It's an
Mhm.
economic system. Um, but I don't know, like I definitely love what you're doing there, because
Thank
I
you.
think that you're right. Like in the fitness world, I mean, at least from what I've seen just on what like goes on Twitter, because I'm not like as probably as connected as you are. But I see people that are very libertarian posting stuff like that. They don't want to have to, you know, reflecting, and obviously a lot of them just don't trust the government because of things like the
Mm.
FDA, you know, all that. There's so many unhealthy lifestyles and foods that are approved or pushed by the government on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's kind of where I found inroads there a lot. So, like one of the probably my first 30 guests was Rob Wolf, who's he's one of like the big founders of, like the paleo diet, and he also has the Element T electrolyte company. So I remember having him on the podcast pretty early on where he kind of described like, hey, well, the founding of the Federal Reserve actually kind of tracked pretty well with like the foundation of like all these junk foods and basically like the lowering the quality of our foods overall. So like if you look at how much food people consume over the last like 30, 40 years, it's crazy that like all the calories from carbohydrates and fats have went up and then
Mm,
protein has stayed relatively same, like a little bit more, but not nearly as much more as like carbohydrates and fats. So people always bring up that like, oh, we have an obesity crisis. But the fact is that we just eat a whole shitload more calories. The food tastes a lot better. It's a lot easier to get to you, and we're not
yeah.
as active as we used to be anymore. So that's why everybody's just sick and fat, is because nobody gets up off their ass and everybody wants to stuff their faces. And look, I don't blame them because food tastes freaking good. But like, you need to do a little bit more than just sit around and get Uber Eats with
Yes.
your steak and shake or what have you. Like, you gotta earn that.
I
And
will say that was like a huge life change for me when I moved to New Hampshire. Was like I am like 30 minutes from, one of the big cities, and we don't
Mhm.
get any delivery whatsoever here.
Right.
None. Not even like the closest pizza shop will bring us pizza. There's nothing
Mhm.
here. And when I lived out in like Sacramento area, um, it was it was like I was spending ridiculous amounts of money on DoorDash and Uber Eats, like definitely over $1,000 a month. And I know that sounds
Woo.
crazy, but like it
Yeah.
was insane, man, because it was so
Goddamn.
convenient. And I was working on the road like 9 months a year. So,
Yeah.
I'd be out in hotels. I didn't really have like a company truck to go get food. So I'd almost have to get delivery. But
Yeah.
it's still like it's ridiculous because you don't really have a ton of healthy options on there. Um, but it's all about convenience, obviously.
Right.
And honestly, if you want to live a healthy lifestyle in 2023, it's not a convenient thing. You have to work on yourself, and it's obviously it starts with your mind. It's not, it's not 100% physical, but obviously you need to. Being poor is a great diet. I 100% agree with that. That's great. I feel that on a deep level.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, like I don't know, like it's just it's about convenience and how quickly things can get to you. It's like that in everything in life, but
Yeah,
with
I think
food,
once
it's yeah.
once you kind of learn what to look for in certain foods and kind of like what you need to opt for, you can kind of get around some of it, but at some point you're gonna run into like, so like if I were to go to Chick-fil-A or something like that, typically most people go there and get like a chicken sandwich and the biggest, side of fries they could possibly get. I'll go for
Mm,
like, the skinless chicken with maybe some fruit or something like that. But like, if you're just ordering from regular fast food, it's pretty difficult to get anything with like a good amount of protein and then like lower carbs and fats, because everything is going to be so much, carbohydrates and fats together. So it's going to taste great, but you're not getting any of the nutrition that you would get if you were able to like cook from home. So in my mind, I think once people learn how to cook and once they kind of know what macros to look for in foods, like, your ratio of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, then you can generally do okay. But like I said, if you're getting delivery and stuff like that, it's a little bit more difficult and it can get really pricey really fast if you're not, cooking from home. So for me, it
yeah.
was all about just learning to cook and then trying to be on top of my diet as much as possible. So like for me personally, the way that I always try to do things if I want to have like some junk food, like my wife and I want to go out to have cheesecake or something like that, then typically I'll try to like arrange my whole day eating wise around that, where I'll eat a little bit leaner throughout the day. And then when it comes to dinner time, okay, well then now I can enjoy. You get a little bit hungry, but once again, you're gonna enjoy at the end of the day and you're not gonna be off track of your, diet or whatever goals that you have in mind.
Like I think that there's like a lot that can be learned in the music scene from like these perspectives too, because bands that tour all the time eat junk. Like we're talking like
Right.
they eat fast food junk all the time. not a lot of these guys bring food with them because it doesn't make any practical sense. You can't really cook food when you're in a van.
Right.
And obviously they're already kind of living an unhealthy lifestyle. They're not sleeping, they're not drinking enough water, they're drinking probably nothing but alcohol, you know what I mean? And uh I know for a fact that like once you're on the road for like 14, 15 days of that and going more and more than that, like it does not sit well. Like
Mhm.
you are exhausted beyond belief. And I know that there's foods that can probably help tame that down. If they just ate a little bit better and drank a little bit more water, I'm sure it'd be a lot easier. But
Yeah, it would be kinda hard to get on any kinda, like, exercise regimen too because you have, like,
Mhm.
hotel gyms. Like, I've seen some dudes that go out on tour and then they'll go get day passes, but, like, day pa yeah, drink coffee too. But like, day passes for gyms are so freaking expensive, like, for some of them, you're paying, like, $30 to stop at a gym and work out, so, like, you have to imagine if you're not making an insane amount of money on the road, which most, like, lower tier bands aren't, then what
Yeah,
are you gonna do? Pay $30 a day or, $30
yeah.
$120 a week if you just go 4 days a week to stop by a gym, like, geez, that is absolutely insane.
How about this? If like your favorite band is coming into town and you personally know them, like bring them some salad or sandwiches or something that
Yeah,
have
there
like
you go. Bring
grass,
'em a
and
protein bar and some jerky or
get them
something.
some deodorant and a fresh pair of socks too. I can't even tell you. But,
Yes.
uh, I don't know, like, so for I don't know, we got, like, a little over 10 minutes left. I was gonna like, talk a little bit kinda more on the politics side of music, if you're down for that.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, let's go.
So I'm gonna kinda go with this real quick. This is a little segment I'm gonna probably do for every music show called Plastic
Mhm.
Cup Politics, so
Hello, six pack of confidence. Been so many nights since we first met. Glad to see you brought all your friends for another night of plastic cup politics.
So, kind of like going into that realm, obviously there's a lot of bands out there that claim that they're like anti-government maybe, but they're really just like against one side of it. Let's be honest. Like some of the bands that you grew up listening to, do you have any that were like, there to make political statements? I'm assuming you listen to like Rage Against the Machine. Who's
Yeah,
in it?
sort of.
But
Like one band that immediately comes to mind, and they're still one of my favorite bands to this day, but I vehemently disagree with everything their lead singer and guitar player says, and that would be Machine Head. I
Mm.
absolutely love Machine Head, but I think Rob Flynn is like the biggest douche nozzle in the world. So, like, one of the situations that comes to mind is Phil Anselmo at Dime Bash in 2016, I want to say he was drunk and he did like some Sieg Heil and said white power and
Oh my
like
god.
Scott Ian and all the people in the music industry just came out in droves and condemned him and he apologized and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was wrong what I did." And just everybody jumped down his throat about it. And then Rob Flynn makes this big video. "I'm never playing a Pantera song again. Fuck these guys." And like what made me so angry about this, and obviously like I don't know these people personally, but like oh, yeah, you know what? He's got a point.
The Dixie
He's got
Chicks.
a
Aren't
point.
what are they called now? Just the Chicks?
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know, because, like, you say that, but then they changed their name to the Chicks because Dixie wasn't politically correct, Justin, so
they did take a big stand against the Iraq war, if I remember correctly. So, Eminem wasn't brave for dissing Trump. The Dixie Chicks were brave for dissing Bush. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's what
yeah,
happened. But
yeah.
basically, like so back in the day, Dime had broke one of Rob Flynn's guitars, and this is when Machine Head was on tour with Pantera. And then like Dime had paid for a guitar, two guitars, and bought us a crown to give to the guys in Machine Head after he broke one of their guitars. And like Pantera helped lift Machine Head up to be who they are today. And then
Yeah,
like Phil does this Sieg Heil, and he's been saying, some stuff that he probably shouldn't be saying for quite a while. But to come out and say, like, "Oh, fuck this guy, and I'm never playing another Pantera song again." Like, you realize these guys are responsible for giving you a name, and you're gonna turn your back and say, "Oh, fuck these guys." Like, no, dude, go fuck yourself over like political shit.
right,
Nah, dude, fuck you.
right. No, like, it's, a pretty like I don't know, for me, like on the punk side of things, you have people like, I don't know, Fat Mike, who's always been pretty controversial, but like he's gay and he cross dresses at every show. So like when he says, slurs against gay people, it
Mhm.
people for some reason don't realize like he's actually gay and he cross dresses at every show.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't know he's gay. I don't know. But and then like you have, I don't know, like Rise Against, who I used to love Rise Against. I used to listen to their
Mhm.
music all the time. And they just use their shows to basically promote PETA the entire time now. Like
Well,
they don't
didn't they
talk.
play a DNC convention?
Yeah, that's another thing too. It's
Oh
like they literally played the
god.
Democratic National Convention, and it's like what is going on here? Like I remember during the Bush years, there was some great punk rock that came out, and then
Mhm.
as soon as like Obama got elected, it was like you could just see
They
that
all
they're like,
lost their
okay,
balls.
then and
Yeah.
they all started writing shitty music. So it's like
Well, so,
they didn't
like,
have.
Gwar was,
Oh yeah,
outspoken about,
Guar.
like, Bush, and, like, they wrote the album in 2004 called War Party, and it was all about the wars and stuff like that, and, some of the lyrics are absolutely hysterical, but they're talking about basically, like, how eventually the wars will essentially come back home and, that certain presidents may have to pay the price, and, like, to their credit, they've always punched both ways, but, like, so one of the things I remember is, like, want to say when I saw them the second or third time, they had Barack Obama come out on stage giving a speech and they bent him over and cut his head off and started spraying the blood everywhere. But like I saw an interview with Otis, their old singer who unfortunately passed away, and he's saying, "Oh, it's nice to see a black guy finally be president or something like that because all the other presidents have been white." I'm like, who gives a fuck, dude? Really? Like nobody cares. Is
Right,
it like what the fuck does that mean? Is he gonna be any good? And like is he doing stuff for the American people? Okay. If
right,
he's doing that, then okay, sure. But like I don't care if he's black. I don't care if he's white. Is he going to do something good for the American people? Is he going to lead America to be a more prosperous nation? That's the conversation that we should be having. And I think that transcends both political sides. Like we should be able to objectively look at what's helping the American people and what's helping versus what isn't. And is it increasing government, encroachment into our lives, or is it taking it away? And I think
right.
really what we should be more concerned about at this point, because both parties generally line up on a lot of the same issues at this point. So, like, what kind of gets the devil off our back in this situation? David Allen, go ahead.
Right. Well, so I don't know, like for me, also like I feel like just the music scene in general, like it needs to be a platform for, pushing cultural change. Like that's
Yes.
basically what it's always kind of been. But anymore, like, I don't know, like there hasn't been a whole lot of, politically based music. Maybe the bands have been outspoken, and obviously the music scene tends to be at least the loudest voices tend to be kind of woke.
Mhm.
But I know that there's like a huge portion of the scene that's very anti-government, anti-authoritarian, libertarian in a lot of ways, maybe not in name yet, but that's obviously the direction that we're going, and something that we as musicians should continue to push towards is to
Yeah.
making this like acceptable opinion and just like educating people and basically creating a cancel proof field within the music industry. Because like if something like COVID happened again, where all the venues shut down and you're not allowed to play your music, like we'd have a network, we could still thrive, and we wouldn't have to stop playing music for 2 years or whatever the hell it was in some places. um with your band, do you guys like how does your political views like mesh with the rest of your band? Are they like pretty on board with it? Like do you guys really talk about it much, or?
So I would say I'm probably the only hardcore libertarian. Um, my bass player was actually at January 6th, so he's very, very
Oh
pro-Trump,
wow.
which
Yeah.
is, no bones about that. I don't have any issues with that. My other guitar player, Jay, I don't know exactly where he lands, but I think he's more of like a very pro Tulsi Gabbard kind of guy. Like he definitely leans right, but he seems to be more concerned about like wages and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Um, my singer was kind of a lifelong Democrat from what I remember, and then over the, Obama years, I think she began to shift a little bit more towards the right.
Hmm.
My drummer, I would say he's more center right, maybe. He doesn't really talk about politics all that much, but he's more of like a hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. Like,
Yeah,
he was a carpenter for a
live and
long
let live
time.
type stuff.
So yeah, we're all blue collar people. Steve and I are both mechanics. Jay, I know, worked for a union for a while. And then not only that, my bass player and singer, who are a married couple, they own multiple businesses together. So I mean, they're very, very
Wow.
like, hey, get the government off our back. My bass player used to joke like, hey, if the liquor control board comes by, please let them come by when I'm not here.
Yeah,
Because it's
nice.
it's kind of like one of those things. So yeah, they're very, very anti-authoritarian. And I think like on the general outlook on stuff, I think we align on a lot of things. And we have these political conversations quite a bit. And like there's some stuff we disagree on and we're like assholes to each other about it because we're all adults and we realize, hey, we come at things from a little bit of a different angle. But I think we all agree that government sucks.
Yeah, like I mean, people on the left and right side of the spectrum, you know, in general, you go out to a show, and if you were to bring up politics to a random stranger, they might fall on that left or right side of the spectrum. They're probably not a libertarian,
Right.
but I can almost guarantee you they don't like the government or
Right.
they hate a lot of things about the government.
Mhm.
I don't really see a lot of government simps out there. Like
No.
there's nobody rooting for the government. Like
Mhm.
nobody does that. But yeah, I don't know. Like this is why we need to get out there and meet people, get some FaceTime,
Touch
and
grass.
yeah, touch grass. But with our music, like that doesn't have to be lyrically political at all. But at the same time, I do think it's important that we do stand up against the cancel culture that's pretty prevalent in the system. And I know that people like us, we do a good job of that, but we need to normalize it. There's too many
Yeah.
bands that are just scared to speak up because their lifestyle is basically could be potentially just thrown out the window, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've really liked about some bands that make political songs, and I think Rage Against the Machine actually did a good job at this. I think All That Remains
Mm.
has done a good job with it, and then even like Creed's Clearwater Revival did a good job with it. Where like the inspiration for their songs may have been like a specific event, but they don't write it about the specific event. They write it about the theme of the event, and that's what I think helps keep a song like kind of in the zeitgeist and keeps it relevant. Is writing about a theme instead of writing about like the actual event. Because when you start putting like dates, times, and names to stuff, then I think carved. Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
I think you tend to put a shelf life on stuff that you put like dates, times, names, and faces to, because people can no longer relate to those figures if, let's say, we're 10 years removed from that. But like when you write about just strictly anti-authoritarianism or like the theme, plant the ideas or like give people an image, almost like leaving a canvas full and letting people put their hopes and dreams onto it. I think that's a sign of good songwriting, is to let people kind of fill it with their own meaning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we are kind of like winding down on time, but while we are, Kyle, why don't you tell everybody where people can find your music and find you on Twitter, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my band is called A Common Crown. You can find us at acommoncrown.com. We're on all major streaming platforms. You can find me on Twitter at Matovcik. That's KYLEMATOVCIK. I know it's a little tricky to spell, so that's why I have to spell it out for everybody. Most active on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook as well. My podcast is called the In Liberty and Health Podcast, which I stream usually about 2 times a week. Also do Cognitive Vigilance on Thursday nights and then 5 till midnight on Mondays. So I stay pretty busy. But yeah, that's all where you can find me. And hopefully we'll have some new music out in A Common Crown within the next month or 2. I'm pretty sure we will, though. And I think the next song we're going to release, it's one that I'm very, very proud of. So yeah, keep an eye on it.
Awesome. Dude, thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to take you off for a quick second and we can chat in a few. But I'm going to kind of throw this up there. We got Jack Lloyd coming in on Wednesday. He is voluntarious. He writes comic books. He's a producer, a singer. Really cool dude. And I'm really excited to talk to him on Wednesday from 8 to 9 Eastern time. And then we're going to do a quick shout out to another one of our sponsors with Free Speech Media, Crafton Business Services. This episode is brought to you by Crafton Business Services. Crafton is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs start, grow, and maintain their businesses by providing a wide variety of products and services to make your business more efficient, manageable, and profitable. If you're looking to add a custom website, web hosting, marketing material, business cards, logo, a registered agent, all this stuff, they can do it for you at just $999 plus state theft. If you already have business cards, Crafton can help you grow to new levels with targeting marketing campaigns, affiliate programs, websites, and social media redesigns and more. Or help make your business less of a headache by streamlining accounting and tax prep and compliance. Go to crafton.us to learn more and use code FSM to help support the network. And that is that. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate you guys checking out the first episode here. We are going to be here every Sunday and Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. Hopefully you guys can tune in for that. I'm definitely stoked to be here and kind of doing this. And Free Speech Media is still rocking. So click on the link in the description and catch a new episode of FSM News, including an activist update from Jason Lyon. He's with You Are the Power, and then followed by Living in the Logos with Ryan Tower. You can catch up on the old episodes or leave us a note. Just check it out, freespeechmedia.live. If you want to keep watching, I highly recommend it. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And hopefully we'll see you back on Wednesday. Have a good night.